what's going on, everybody? It's Jeremy from Hard to Master, and today I'm going to be showing you a little bit about Mythic Mischief, which is a game from IV Studios or IV Games, and they put out some pretty big hits over the last year and a half or so. You're going to have Moonrakers, which they just had another campaign for some expansions, and then you also have Veiled Fate, a game that's possibly on our top 10 of the year, 2022, so definitely check those out. We both have reviews for those on Love to Hate and Hard to Master in case you're interested in those. But today I'm going to be talking to you about Mythic Mischief. And what Mythic Mischief is it's a game that's a very tactical game. It's abstract-esque, except there is a theme to it. And that theme is going to be like your Monsters, Inc. You have all these different factions, such as the vampires, Frankenstein's monsters. You have wizards, witches, trolls, ghosts, and zombies. So very themey of taking an abstract and turning it into a tactical chess-like game where you're going to be moving around the board, trying to move the tome maker to move into your opponent's spaces so that you can increase your points and remove them from the board. There will be a morning phase where the Tomes Keeper is going to move 4 spaces, and then in the afternoon it's only going to move 3 spaces. Basically, you're moving in the shortest path, trying to get to 3 different spots on the board while you're trying to throw your opponents into the Tome Keeper's space. So, not going to do a full overview for you of the game or gameplay. What I really want to focus on are the different factions, and I'll talk to Lance. We'll try to put some images of the board for you so that you can see a little bit closer. Also have them on my Instagram page at MoMinisMoProblems. On Instagram, you can see I've laid out all of the different faction boards, which are dual recess boards. This right here is a Headmaster Pledge. I do want to thank IV Studios for giving me a core pledge, or a core box that I have used. And the 4 main factions that you're going to get in that box are going to be the vampires, Frankenstein's monsters, you're going to get the zombies, and the wizards. And so the other 3 factions are standalone expansions that you can get, or if you pledge the Game Found campaign, you do have the Headmaster's Pledge, which is what this box is. I actually traded a friend of mine some games for this box because in this Headmaster Pledge that I've traded for, it does have all 3 of the expansion factions, but it also has enough components so that you could have 2 games at once. So if you think of like Hate by Cool Mini or Not, in that giant Hate box you did have 2 components for 2 games to play at once, and that's what this has. So you could essentially play 2 different teams of 2, so that's 4 in one board, and then another game with another 4 people if you wanted to, or you could play this game many different modes. You have 1v1, you have a solo mode, which is amazing, I'm going to talk about. You also have 2v1, and then you have 2v2, or you could play blitz mode where things are timed. There's so many different ways that you can play this game, but let's talk about it. And you also can set up, which I want to do on Halloween, I don't know if my friends want to do it, I want to set up a tournament where you can play. We could just round robin a tournament and get it going. Kind of seed the different factions of what you want to play and go at it. So this is your main board. And so as you can see, you've got your point tracker on the bottom. This is where the Tomes Keeper is going to start. On this board, you're going to place 3 different tokens, which will tell you where the Tomes Keeper is headed based on these tokens here. Red for the morning, purple for after lunch. He's basically moving around the board to try to reach these spaces in numerical order, but there's going to be some obstacles in the way. You're going to have these miniature bookshelves, which will be on different spots, and they're going to be moved by you and your opponents. You also have these clutter spaces, which cause 2 movement if you're doing a normal move. But essentially, when you do certain character actions, that could move somebody on there and you neglect that additional movement. Here's a Tomes Keeper if you've never seen him. For me, this is a game I don't really want to paint. I've seen some painted and they look great. But for me, I like how they look unpainted. I like that it's really easy to recognize. If I did anything for it, I'd possibly just do a base coat of a color, maybe wash it and dry brush to pop some details. But there are certain games where I don't think need to be fully painted, and I think that they're better or easier to recognize, especially in tactical games or games where you're going to battle in area control. Having the ability to see your faction very clearly is very important for me, and so I can't have somebody go, oh, well, I didn't realize that was my character, things like that. Each one of the factions will come in a game tray. So again, even in the core box, you're going to have an insert which will have these trays. It'll have a place to put the bookshelves, Tomes Keeper. These tokens, you'll have to slide into a spot here or there to fit. It's not a big deal, and they fit in there. But here's the zombies. They're in the core set. You also have the wizards, purple, which are in the core set. You're going to have the Frankenstein monsters, green, which are in the core set, and then you'll also have the blue vampires, which are in the base set. And not only would you have these game trays, the bookshelves, one Tomes Keeper, you're going to have your solo cards. You'll also have your these are the before lunch cards that I was talking about. Tells you kind of where tomes are going to be, where you'll respawn if you get removed from the board, and then where you'll put those 1, 2, 3 tokens. Same for after lunch, but you'll see that he moves 3 after lunch instead of 4. So that's the cards that you get. You also have these different cards that will give you a reminder of how to play. You also have these solo cards, which I'm going to pull out, but I'm going to hold that for a second because I'm excited to talk to you about the solo. This game is a great solo, and I'm going to talk to you about how you're going to do that. But you also have a rule book, which is pretty good. I mean, it goes through. I will tell you one thing that IV Studios has done, and they've done this on some of the other games, is I love when a company puts out a rules video or a how to play video so you can actually play it pretty quickly, because you can watch that video or send that video to your friends. Now they had a chance to look at it, know how to play, and didn't have to read the rule book, or you didn't have to sit there and teach it forever. You can just clarify some things, just like the rule book would be. There are some a little FAQ, not a whole long list, but there's a few of them. And you could probably find stuff on BGG if you had more clarification that you needed. But all the base factions are in here. If you have the expansion factions or the Headmaster Pledge with them in there, you're going to have these little leaflets that have the information that you're going to need for the 3 expansion characters. So let me just talk to you about the base boards. So what you'll have here is on your base board, you're going to have your character with some art. So if you did paint them, there's your pretty good reference. But every character's move and distract is going to be the same. Where it spices up is every other action is going to be a little bit different. Your, like this character's infect ability is actually moving the character. If you're adjacent to it, you can move it at a diagonal. Whereas if we look at the wizards, theirs is different. So if I'm adjacent to an enemy or another character, I can swap places with that, whether it's orthogonally or diagonally. I can swap places with them, and that's how I can move them to maybe set them up, because you're going to move the Tomes Keeper, and if you move him, if it's the same path, 4 spaces here, 4 spaces this way, you get to pick the way you want to move them. And you definitely want to make sure you are not in the path, because if you accidentally move through yourself, you're going to lose points. Another one here, so if we look at the Frankenstein monsters, you can actually throw this character. So you can move them from this space around you here, or same with the diagonal. You could move them to the other side of yourself. And the last one is you can actually lure, if you're the vampires, you can lure that character to you. So if it's 2 spaces away, I could move it 1 space closer, either at a diagonal or a straight line. The other thing that's going to be different here is if you look at, and we'll just do them in order like I had, if you look at the zombies' ability for tossing, that toss ability is to move the bookshelves. So these bookshelves will be on there. You can actually toss that to the other side of yourself, or if you're next to it, you can toss it to the next space over, leaving a space there. I want to talk about, I'll talk about that in a second. So this one with the shift, I can actually shift these bookshelves either left or right or up and down 1 space. And then same with the Frankenstein monsters, I can actually just push it to one of these sides or as you can see here, if I'm next to it, I can push it that way. Like I said, I'm going to try and add an image of these, maybe somewhere in the corner, so you can kind of see what it's showing. I'll get some images to land so you can see a little closer. But this one, the concealing, you're actually, with the vampires, you're trying to use that bookshelf to kind of block yourself off. So you can actually move it to kind of conceal you from having that Tomes Keeper have a path to you. In every space on here, you'll see a pip. That pip is telling you where your dice are going to start. And they're going to have this value above them. Now, if you use them then they're going to shift down at the end of the turn. If they have space, you'll see right here there's an empty space. So if I use this die, it's going to actually slide down unless I get some of these tomes, which will be on the board, which kind of help you boost your actions. Or they can also, because you'll start with one down here in one of your legendary abilities, you can actually replace that later. But I could put that there. Now I know that's only going to go down to this value. Again, I don't want to go super heavy into it. Just want to give you some ideas of how this is going. But they all have a different ability here. So the reason I bring up the differences in the boards are each character feels different. So you do have 2 actions that are going to be the same for all 7 of them. But the other 2 actions that you're choosing right here are going to be slightly different. Same concept, but you're moving people and bookshelves in a different way. Down here, and they're thematic too, in how they've kind of changed the way you do them. You know, throwing bookshelves or throwing characters from here to there, the big brutes. You also have these 2 abilities down here. Your legendary ability is very thematic in how you're going to activate it. And then after lunch, after the Tomes Keeper's made it through these 3 spaces, he's going to start doing the after lunch period with the purple cards. Now you have this ability, which is ongoing throughout the rest of the game. And so the base game gives you 4 factions, which you can switch up. Then you have 3 other ones. You have the trolls, which are really cool. I really like them. One of their things is they actually get their own bookshelf. In their game trade, they get their own bookshelf that they can place on the board, and they get to place it each round to a new spot one time on their turn. So that's pretty cool. They can also launch people. I loved launching, a character from this side in a straight line over there, putting them right where they needed to be. So whenever I move that Tomes Keeper, because you can never move a character or anything through the Tomes Keeper, it's too big. But you want to get it right next to the Tomes Keeper so you can move them right into it whenever you move them toward these 3 tokens. Or even if you're distracting or different abilities may cause you to, like the zombie, he has stench. He can push basically the Tomes Keeper don't want to smell him. He can move him 1 space away, and you could essentially have placed somebody there, use that, and now you've knocked out them for 1 point, and additionally, you still move them, and you could have set up multiple people. So it's really cool how the different characters have their abilities, and they feel different, and it's a challenge on how you're going to move people and get used to them so that you can get them in the way of the Tomes Keeper. And it's just really neat trying out each one and feeling the theme that was put into each character. So those are kind of how the boards work. Again, I don't want to do a full overview to where I'm getting too long of a video. IV Studios, like I said, does have a how to play video, and there's even a solo play video that Austin did. There's a lot of different videos that you can find on them if you want to get more information about each individual character, or exactly how to play the game. And like I said, usually I think in that video he does go over some of the factions and how each one of them works. The last thing I want to just explain to you is how the solo works, because I found that the solo is a lot of fun, and I feel like I'm going to be doing this game more solo after the response I got from some of my friends when I was teaching it to them or playing with them, and I played several of the different modes. But the solo is going to have this 1 card, and this is basically the return card where you're going to be placing people after you remove them. Because in a solo game, you pick a faction, you set it up, and you're going to use the mythics from another faction and place them on the board and their tomes. They're essentially trying to collect tomes to get points. You are trying to get them captured and keep them from getting those tomes while getting your tomes. But there's going to be this deck of detention cards, and you're going to have 3 of them face up on the board, or not on the board, but next to the board, and it's going to tell you on there where you don't want to be. So if you look at any of these yellow spaces, those are going to be spaces where you get trapped. So basically you're knocked over for the round, and you cannot move them for that round. So you have to be careful not to be there. If you see the eye, that's where the Tomes Keeper is going to capture you and remove you from the board. So you don't want to be there, and that tells you where you're placing tomes. The arrows mean you're going to get pushed. So if that card didn't come up, but this one did, you're going to get pushed. So those are the 3 symbols, or 3 or 4 different things you're going to see on these cards, and they're going to be in a row. And up here at the top, you'll see that it has this row. This card, if I were to draw it off the deck, because those 3 stay out, the rest are a draw deck, you're going to draw a card. And if I drew this one off the deck, that means that the middle card in the row is the one I'm going to activate. So if all these 3 cards are out, it tells me where I don't want to be. Now, there's a probability with each one, and I have to be careful because the one that's on the farthest left is going to be the one that has the highest probability to come out. Then the middle, the least probability is going to be the card to be pulled from the right side, but it could still come out. And I don't want to be trapped. I don't want to be removed. I don't want to be pushed either. So, because I could get pushed into a space I don't want to be. So I've got to be very careful in planning, so at the end of my turns, I'm in a good spot so that I'm not trapped. And so I would draw it, so those are there. And so like I said, so this is the farthest left card. So if I look here, I would activate this card. This card goes at the back of the row, so now that's the far right card. The others slide down. So it's pretty cool how these detention cards are going to keep you on your toes. You have to plan where you don't want to be, just like if you were playing with somebody else and you don't want to be in a certain spot, because they're going to move that Tomes Keeper in the path that's going to try to capture you. So a lot to think about. I really like how they designed the solo. It's one of my favorite ways to play this game. Playing 2-player is nice, one-on-one. I do like that. I have not played 2v1, but I feel like since I have played 2v2, I know kind of the idea behind how you're going to have less miniatures, you're going to use 1 color of tomes, and it's 2 people splitting the actions, so they're going to have 4 actions between the 2 miniatures versus having 3 with their 3 miniatures. So it's a trade-off of that. 2v2 was fun. The people that I played with, they enjoyed 2v2 the best, I think, but I will say it's going to be quite a bit longer. There is going to be more analysis paralysis because you're planning out every move, and you have to think about where you're going to be at the end of the round and how they're going to move you and themselves and then the Tomes Keeper. And so it can be a much longer game in a 2v2 game than it is a 1v1, because there's 1 less person on each team checking out the board to see where they want and don't want to be, and second guessing everything and trying to take back moves, which makes it difficult as you take back moves. And so I really like solo. It's one of my favorite ways to play. I like 1v1 because it's 1v1. It's going to be a quicker game. Both of those will be quicker. Both of those will match the box at about 45, 60 minutes or so. That 2v2 game will extend to like the 90 minutes, maybe even more, depending on how much they're thinking about every single thing in a game. So you do want to take that into account. But again, this is a tactical game like a chess or checkers, that abstract feel, but with a whole lot of themes. So for me, I really like this game. I like Santorini, which is a game that feels like they took that and added so much more asymmetry and so many more actions to it to make it more complex. If you don't know about Santorini, it's a game where you're building up Santorini, these blue dome districts. You're building up, you can move and place a building level, trying to cap off the top so that your opponent cannot get to the top space. And every person is going to have one ability. Well, this game takes that one ability, gives you two special abilities, but also gives you two actions that are slightly different for every character. And so as that game gives a lot of theme to Santorini and how they're moving their special ability, this game gives even more theme with how many more actions they've adjusted so that you have the asymmetry and it matches that faction. So this is this game for you. If you're someone that likes tactical games like that, two-player games, I think so. If you're looking for a good solo game, this to me is a really good solo game. It's a tactical solo game, so it's not maybe like some others where you're playing a bigger game and it has a solo mode. This game is more like you're playing a 1v1 without another player. It's very back and forth kind of with how things are moving, even with the cards and how you're drawing them. That's one of my favorite things is how these attention cards work. Drawing one and seeing which one and just the probability and having to go off that probability, but also try to stay away from all the spaces. If you like games that have a lot of asymmetry, this game is great, especially if you do find a Headmaster Pledge or the expansion characters, because each one feels quite different. And at times you may feel like one's overpowered, but then you have an ability that's overpowered too. And you may not like this faction, but you may like this one. And I like having 7 different options to go solo in the game. And then those cards are going to come out in a different way each time. There's a different setup in the board for how you place your starting setup. That can be different a lot of times. And so there's quite a bit of variability, and I love that in games. So if you like team games where you're going to play 2v2 like a Cerebria or things like that, if you like team games, I think you would like the team game. We enjoyed the team experience quite a bit, 2v2. It was very close. Most games are going to be very close, within about 2 points of each other. But it is going to be, that full 90 minutes to, maybe an hour, 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours. Just all depends on how you play and how much analysis prowess you might get in a game. So really like Mythic Mischief. If you like other IV Studio games, the production quality is there for each thing. Quality miniatures, quality dice that you're going to get that match your player's faction. You also have, like I said, the tomes, your character minis. You have the board. You have the dual recessed boards. Granted, I sleeve my cards, but they do sell their own sleeves on their site if you wanted to get them. And then the insert, game trays, a great insert. Even the spot UV on the board, or the box is nice. So would I recommend this game? Again, I recommend it, but if you're someone that does not like tactical strategy games, like an abstract type experience, with even if it has theme or not, I don't know if you'd like this one. Probably not if you don't like those type of games. If you don't like team games, probably not gonna like it. Now, if you don't love tactical games, but you are a heavy solo gamer, you might check out the base game. I think the solo is awesome, and like I said, I stopped soloing a long time ago, and I just started back over the summer with the Root Bots and played several other solo games now recently. And this one is one that I really enjoyed, and I've played a few times, and I really like what it does. Overall thoughts, if I had to give this game a score, I would probably give it a 7.8. If it was something that was, that's because of all the variety that it has in it, the production quality, the awesome solo mode. But it's a game that I'm probably, based on my friends' overall reflection, I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to get them to the table. It's a great game that if maybe some people cancel it, I'm playing a 2-player 2 players at night and I don't want to do a co-op campaign of some type like Bloodborne or Horizon, I would break this out for a 1v1 experience. If I want to do that major tournament, yes, I want to try tournament mode and get a tournament going between 2 tables or sets at the same time. To me, that's interesting. I love theme in games. This game knocks the theme out of the park. If it was like I don't even know. I feel confident in saying, to me, this game is a 7.8, just below an 8. It's not my favorite of their games. I do like Veiled Fate probably the best because it's a great party game where you can get 5 people. This is one of those that it's going to be pretty much a 2-player game, a solo experience, or if I want that random 3 or 4 mode where I have 2v1 or 2v2 teams, that could come out. But more than often, this is going to be a solo game for me now, or probably a 1v1. Or if and even in that tournament mode, it's going to be 1v1 or 2v2 tournament mode. So it's a little bit less likely to hit the table as much, but I really like what they did. I love the ambition behind the company, IV Studios. I love that they're taking on challenges of going with a full, pretty asymmetric game and giving you this tactical experience. And they did not shorten you in theme. It's not like anything missed on the theme level. So the theme is amazing. So I do recommend this game at a 7.8. But again, that is if you're looking for the type of experiences that I've given you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I do want to thank IV Studios again for sending me away from Gen Con with a core box, because it did get me to where I really enjoyed the game much more and went ahead and splurged and went up trading away some good things to get this Headmaster Pledge, which is a little bit harder to find now. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, feel free to please like and subscribe so you'll be notified as we put out more content. And then please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed Mythic Mischief, what you're excited about. If maybe you need clarification on something, I always go through and check the comments to see how I can answer your questions. So, till next time, I'm Jeremy. Hope you have a good one. See ya.